What seems harmless but is incredibly dangerous? A nurse. I had a teenage girl come from home economics class. She was sewing and had a pin between her lips. I mean, who hasn't done that? She sucked it in and it got lodged in her throat. While waiting for a scope she felt it dislodge and went deep into her main bronchial. She required major surgery. Had a young boy running with a toothbrush in his mouth. Got jammed way deep. Almost hit a major artery. The pin thing is one of my major fears. I'm in costume design and sew a lot and tend to hold pins in my mouth for just a minute. Trying to unlearn that habit because of the horror stories. A human bite. I worked at a kindergarten and one kid was sometimes super sweet but sometimes really mean. He could switch in a second. While I was naming the coloring pages they were about to get, he walked up to me and bit me in the arm. Didn't think it was through, cause no blood. But it started swelling and getting red and the marks were clearly there. Went to the doc right after my shift. He explained a human bite is the second most dangerous bite there is. Got antibiotics but they didn't work. Arm just kept swelling and getting completely dark purple over 2 days. Doctor sent me to the hospital where I got strong antibiotics. Basically everything in me was cleaned with that crap. Felt weak for months. If it didn't start working by that night I'd have to come back and be hospitalized to get my underarm removed. I've shat some bricks there. Never thought a kid's bite could cause this. Luckily the swelling got less and the bruise stopped spreading so I still have my arm. But that was very close. Pool covers. It's like being wrapped in a bedsheet underwater. You cannot get free and you cannot scream for help. Once you're in, the only way to get out is to be incredibly lucky and get free, or have faith that someone saw or heard you fall in and hope that they get you in time. It's a lengthy, terrifying death that's completely avoidable. Fun fact, I actually almost died BC of this as a little kid at a pool party. Neighbor's dog noticed though and barked at the pool until someone came by. Having a loose animal in the car. A safety instructor once told me doctors had to dig dog bones out of a person after it got between them and an airbag. Same with unrestrained people. They become projectiles. Story of a car full of adults. No seat belts. With a child baby properly strapped in the back seat. Got into a major accident. Baby was killed due to the unrestrained adult being tossed around in the car, therefore crushing and impacting the baby. Might have been an older driver's ed scare tactic story, but it seems feasible. Kids picking flowers in the park. I am a conservation technician for a county park system. At least once a year I have to stop parents with kids picking flowers off the trail because I see kids with either poison hemlock, one of the deadliest plants if ingesting even a tiny amount, or wild parsnip, which can cause some serious permanent scarring, burns, and boils if the sap gets onto your skin and is exposed to sunlight. Don't let your kids pick or eat anything you aren't 100% sure of. My cousin walked through some tall grass behind her house when she was 11 and got burnt by parsnips. She's in her 20s now and still has the scars on her legs from it. It's also the incident that inspired my username. There's that Peppa Pig episode about spiders, teaching UK kids that they are nice and friendly, and that episode is banned in Australia. So there you go. Here's my answer. Peppa Pig episodes. Confined spaces, above ground or worse, below the surface. If you do urban exploration, caving, or anything like that, get a 4-gas detector, clip it to your chest or belt, and set the alarm to maximum. If it makes a sound, get the frick out or you are going to die. To add to this, do not go in to rescue someone who has collapsed in a confined space. The number of times numerous people go in to rescue someone who has collapsed in a silo or something is crazy. As a maintenance man who found a dead guy today, huffing a duster, don't do it, kids. Not changing the tires on your car. Someone back me up on this. You can't just drive around with the same tires on forever. Eventually you'll end up doing donuts in the middle of a wet interstate because your back tires lost traction. Can confirm. Don't be afraid to pay for quality in sheets, shoes, and tires. Anything that comes between you and the ground. Eating raw or undercooked kidney beans can make you very sick or even kill you. It only takes like 3 undercooked kidney beans to ruin your day. Ooh, I once ate a full bowl of kidney beans that I didn't cook for long enough, and I also didn't let them swell in water beforehand as you should. I had the most insane puking, diarrhea, Cold sweat. Shivering fit toilet session ever. Cat scratch fever. Yeah, the song is pretty cool, but that's about it. A stray cat scratched my dad one time and fricked his crap up. I got Bartonella as a teenager and was part of the 0.0001% who get it and have no symptoms other than literally going blind. Woke up one morning and couldn't see out of my right eye. Took a few months to diagnose. Got some fun steroid infusions. And finally regained sight like 6 months later. Super fun as a 14-year-old. Walking off the boardwalks at Yellowstone. They have several signs pressing that even though the ground may look normal in those areas, it could be really thin. I've seen people do it anyway. Looks safe. Last time I was at Yellowstone, I was with friends at Old Faithful. Some guy had walked out onto the outcropping which surrounds the geyser, which prompted quite the fit from a very unamused park ranger. Small cuts you get when doing marine stuff. If you are diving snorkeling at a coral reef and lightly scrape yourself on some coral, for the love of God disinfect the living crap out of that, no matter how mild it looks. The bacteria on coral will literally eat your leg off. Having small cuts on your hand while handling stuff like diatomaceous earth or sea sponges can cause tiny glass spines to enter your bloodstream and poke tiny holes in all those blood highways running through you. While this is a bit of a he said she said story, my professor apparently had a student hospitalized and died due to massive internal bleeding issues from handling this crap day after day. Garage door springs. People don't realize just how much tension those things are actually under. Never repair a garage door yourself unless you know exactly what you're doing. The stored energy in them is enough to break bones and sever limbs. Over-the-counter medicines. Just because you can get something without a prescription does not mean it's safe in all cases or in high doses. Traveling drilled that into me. Something common in my home country would be prescription only or even banned in another, and vice versa. Usually it's because of concerns over excessive use or just whatever side effects being deemed unacceptable in one place or not another. Makes you realize how much of the politics of a place come into play in terms of your safety. Pushing someone's face into a cake as a joke. Some cakes have little wooden spikes inside to support the cake. Saw a post where a girl's face was gored by one of these. Plus it's also no fun most of the time. Or fun for like 30 seconds and then you realize there's no cake for anyone because you smashed it all. Cat bites. Cat fangs puncture deep and trap bacteria deep within your tissue, leading to horrible infections. You might think one isn't serious because it's not bleeding much, but that just means the wound isn't flushing properly. If you get seriously bitten by a cat, it's very important to go to urgent care so they can properly disinfect the wound. The cinnamon challenge that was all the rage a few years back. When aspirated, it can cause severe burns on mask passages and airways. I am actually deathly allergic to cinnamon. I joke with my friends that on my deathbed I'd like to try cinnamon. Hanging around idiots. Most of the time they only do dumb shit that affects themselves, but when they do something that affects you it can change your whole life. So just remember, if you're in with a group of imbeciles, you're rolling the dice with your life every second. It's like standing in low-grade radiation. It's unnoticeable right up until it's incurable. Climbing a ladder. It doesn't even have to be a big ladder. Even one of those 2-step ladders are incredibly dangerous. One ill-placed step can change your entire life. If I am not mistaken, the majority of workplace deaths are from falling off a ladder. I use them daily at work, and I'm careful to the point where I've been made fun of for it. Like I give a crap though, when I die, it's sure as heck not going to be at work, lol. Well, cows seem pretty harmless, but these guys aren't to be underestimated. I got attacked by a mother one for getting a bit too close to the calf. I was lucky the horns were specifically made to be round, otherwise I would have lived with one kidney from then on. Since it rammed into my kidney but not hard enough to damage, thankfully. Still hurt like heck after though. Your chance of being killed by a cow are low, but never zero. Texting while driving. You might think this is obvious, but I see many people texting and driving every day. Not cool and definitely not safe. I saw a dude pull onto a busy street from a parking lot without looking up from his phone for even a second to see if it was clear. I couldn't believe the stupidity and luck I'd just seen. Those black foodstuffs with charcoal in them. Charcoal interacts with a bunch of medications, gets in the way of nutrient absorption, and can really upset your digestive tract. First time visiting France and had a charcoal vanilla coffee, tasted delicious, until I threw up literally 12 times a few hours later for the rest of the day. Water in general, but fast moving water specifically. 2 or 3 inches of water is all that's needed to sweep you off of your feet if it's moving fast. 12 inches of water will lift and sweep away a car. Water is heavy and will frick you up if you don't respect it. Spillways. As an engineer, I have seen and understand that they can kill you. I know that when the toe or last half of a spillway is filled and there is a pool at the bottom, a whirlpool can be created. Not the whirlpool you're thinking of at the public pool that spins you around. It's similar but turned on its side. The whirlpool it created will prevent you from swimming away from the spillway or even create waves pushing you down. The water goes down the spillway and then rushes back up where the incoming water pushes it back down again. The force can be so great that you cannot get out. Kids see these spillways as water slides with pools on the bottom. If they're large spillways, canoers see them as a small waterfall. These hidden whirlpool can kill you. People go down the spillways and get trapped and will drown. They can become extremely dangerous. I don't know if it sounds silly, but spillways, dams, and seeing how much water is on one side gives me extreme anxiety, especially imagining near the dam gates and the whirlpools that form and keep everything frozen unable to move. It freaks me out. For kids, someone online with a sympathetic ear for their problems. Responsible adults will try to put you in touch with real life help, not encourage a pattern of reliance and inappropriate intimacy. Bonus danger points on anyone who throws down you're really mature for your age. Predators online work just like real life hunting predators. Their first goal is to separate you from your herd. Even offline, these predators exist while using the same tactics like being chill and giving you a beer when you're 16 because you seemed down. An unloaded gun, or even worse, an unloaded gun. There is a reason as to why gun instructors always tell you to treat every firearm as if it was loaded. Yeah, my dad accidentally shot his best friend in the head because of this exact situation. Kid initially survived the shot, died from an infection in the hospital. Silicon chips. Very safe in the finished product form, but dear god, the chemicals involved are dangerous. One component in production is pure hydrogen and it is the safest one. Another is trichlorosilane. Its auto-ignite temp is 40 Fahrenheit. It's combustible on contact with moisture, which includes humidity. When it mixes with water and doesn't manage to explode, its temperature skyrockets and the byproduct is hydrochloric acid. I learned this while working in a polysilicon factory when they dumped it on my crew from an empty vessel. I learned about some of this during my EMS training. In Silicon Valley, you don't just run up to see if the guy in the tanker is okay. One of the medics training me talked about an old incident where they were told to stage a half-mile away, and that there was heavy, green fog rolling across the area that had been evacuated. Letting water from a freshwater source up your nose. Most of the time it will be fine, but every once in a while you'll get a brain-eating amoeba that has a 99.9% fatality rate. This is in the US as well. Mostly an issue in warm, stagnant water. All the cases I remember hearing about were from FL, people swimming in canals and such. Following too closely in your car, not just tailgating, but even following 50+ feet behind in fast traffic. Next time you're in your car, wait for the car in front of you to pass a clear marker like an exit sign or a bridge, then count the seconds until you reach this marker. This is the amount of time you have to react, and potentially save your own life. In an emergency, I always shoot for 3 seconds, which is about 20 car lengths in 70 miles per hour traffic. For people who follow a 3 car length rule, you have about 0.4 seconds to react in the same situation, and I'm not that quick under pressure. To add to this, too many people only look at the car in front, next and behind them. Your response will be much faster and safer if you look further down the road. Sometimes I even responded faster to something happening in the front than the car in front of me. Feeding wildlife. Even if it seems safe for yourself to do so, it's probably very dangerous for the animal you feed. It's very likely that feeding a wild animal may lead to its death. Amateur mental health advice. Everyone is an armchair psychologist these days and that creates problems. Diagnosing and treating mental illness is actually incredibly complex. There's a reason we make people study for so many years before we call them experts. If a friend comes to you complaining about a serious mental health condition like depression, suicide, anxiety, etc., your first advice should always be see an expert. It's way easier than you think to give negligent advice that can make the problem worse. Instead, be a listener. Chances are nothing you say can fix your friend's mental health issue. It's far more helpful to be a sympathetic ear than to give potentially negligent advice. I read a study recently on a rare disorder called Eagle's syndrome. A little bone at the base of your skull gets too long. There were about 30 cases in the US last year where someone was talking on their phone, dancing, just looking up and pointing at something, and that little bone was long enough to sever their internal carotid artery. Weird to think someone's body just tried to end it all for looking up. Being conflict avoidant. People think they are trying to keep the peace by not causing friction. But when you don't have healthy conflict, boundaries get run over, you'll get burnt out, you feel unheard or taken advantage of, and on a higher level, terrible people get into and keep positions of power and oppression when people opt to stay silent rather than challenge the status quo for the sake of pseudo-unity. Having loose, untucked shirt, or long sleeve, or long, untied hair pulled into any type of spinning motor such as a drill press, cut off, chop, saw, table saw to prevent being pulled into a machine and becoming macerated, as it can happen exceedingly quickly, or when cleaning steel with naphtha prepping for patina around sawdust on a table, as it can spontaneously combust. Set your work table on fire. Putting your mouth on a helium tank nozzle. Years ago when I was about 10, my younger brother and I were at a wedding that lasted late into the night. We had grouped up with the other kids no longer under the watchful eye of adults and proceeded to look for entertainment. We started on the balloons rather quickly but thought it took too long to suck the helium out, and since no one was really watching us anymore, we decided to go to the source and take turns with our mouths on the tall tank we found. God, when I look back and think of the damage we could have done. Turbulence. If proper precautions are being taken, it's not dangerous, but under certain circumstances, it can be. 1. Keep your seatbelt on at all times when you're sitting, even if the light isn't on. The flight crew doesn't just recommend this to ruin your day. Clear air turbulence can happen at any time, without warning, and people have been seriously injured by being thrown from their seats and hitting the overhead bins, seats, other passengers, etc. 2. Lap infants. Big no. I'm not sure why the FAA even allows this. Infants are safest in a car seat for air travel. The minute the plane hits a bump, moms, or whoever is holding the baby, arms are going to loosen and a child whose skull hasn't fully fused together is going to go airborne. In the case of baby wearing, any impact the wearer incurs is also going to affect the child, and given how little room there is between rows of airplane seats, there's a much greater chance of injury to the baby. It probably seems ridiculous to most folks to have to purchase a separate seat for a small child, and while I wholeheartedly agree that the airline industry is rife with money-grubbing bloodsuckers, this is one expense you can't afford to skimp on. Source: I personally know several airline pilots and crew members who have seen this crap firsthand. Answering a seemingly innocent "just wanted to see how you are doing" text from someone who is bad for your mental health. Stonefish, camouflage fish, very painful venom, cone snail, orange-white cone-shaped shell that often looks attractive and enticing, until you pick it up. I wanted to look at these wondrous creatures, so I typed stonefish into Google, had a look, and marveled. I then typed sea, and cone snail was the second suggestion. Algorithms be knowin'. Paracetamol and or ibuprofen. It's a really common, easy to get hold of and cheap painkiller, but can be deadly as feck. I work in the healthcare business and I've seen people who have tried to kill themselves with paracetamol. They generally take 30, 500 milligrams tablets. This is usually a potentially fatal dose, dependent on body weight, as it can lead to liver failure. Yet I have seen people with a simple toothache, and I know it can be the worst pain ever, as I've had it myself. who have taken 3-6 times that dosage as they can't cope with the pain but don't think they have done anything wrong since it's kept the pain at bay, not whilst realizing they are blitzkrieging their liver. Most recently was a 23-year-old who'd had toothache in his wisdom tooth for a couple of weeks and had developed an abscess. He was taking 2x 500mg paracetamol and 2x 200mg ibuprofen every 15 minutes as the pain was so bad that it was the only way he could dull the pain. When told they have to go to ED right away, the response is usually why it's only paracetamol and ibuprofen. They wouldn't sell them if they were bad for you. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.